Hi there, Kim Coco here, founder of Swagtail and the Flexible Golfer program. Today's yin yoga class is designed to open up the inner thighs, elongating the tissues along the groin and the outer hips as well, so you can create more equanimity around the pelvis. Now, if you're a golfer, you do adduct and hug in with the legs as you rotate and generate a powerful swing. So this can help alleviate any built-up tension in this area. And if you just notice that stress has accumulated throughout your day or your week, this time in stillness to really let the body unwind is going to be a great way for you to have new space, new thoughts, and new possibilities for your future moving forward. This brings me to two quotes, both from the book I'm reading now called Rising Strong. So the first quote is this. It's from a book, or referring to a book called The Body Keeps Score. He's a professor of psychiatry at Boston University, and this book explores how trauma literally reshapes the brain and body. And I'm going to go ahead and say that pretty much every experience we have changes the brain and body. Trauma just becomes this higher level. And how interventions that enable adults to reclaim their lives must address the relationship between our emotional well-being and our bodies. I'm also going to venture to say that's a good way to be a healthy adult overall. There's so much wisdom in our bodies. We just need to learn how to listen and trust what we're hearing. You're taking time today on the mat to get still, to turn down the volume on the noise in the outer part of your life so that you can really tune in and listen. You might notice sensations, you might notice emotions come up. You don't have to really dive into much of that. We're going to use the breath to wash it away, to create a clean slate. And then this leads to quote number 2. And this is where she quotes Steve Jobs. He says, "Creativity is just connecting things. Creating is the act of paying attention to our experiences and connecting the dots so we can learn more about ourselves and the world around us." So as we go today and we dive into these different postures, you're going to be breathing, but your body's going to be relatively still. So this is the chance for you to notice what comes up, keep what's serving you, let go of the rest, and really start to use the information you gather to piece together a future, a vision, ideas of what's possible to come. That can be in any area of your life. So today's class, I do suggest you grab at least one blanket or towel, a bolster or stack of pillows or towels, and 2 blocks. So we're going to start on your back today, and you can set all of your props aside except for your 2 blocks. Make sure those are handy. So bolster and blanket will come later. We've got some time first. So come onto your back. Start with the soles of the feet on the floor, or extend your legs long for Shavasana. Whatever feels better for your low back. You might even wiggle around momentarily to see what you're working with today with the body. Notice what areas are already speaking to you. Take note of where you observe a sense of spaciousness or lightness. And that could be deep in the tissue or more subtle on the skin. Begin to notice the weight of your body as it sinks toward the ground. And as gravity draws you downward, notice the lightness of the breath. Notice why you came to your mat today. Thanking yourself for being here. And ask how you might want to be different in 60 minutes time. Whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, or all of the above. And then let's amplify that intention. On your next inhale, take a full breath in all the way up, filling up the lungs, side ribs, up underneath even the collarbone, and then pause at the top. Relax the shoulders, face, and hands, and let it all go back out through the nose or the mouth. Start to breathe in and out through your nose in an even rhythmic pattern as we start to take the body into some shapes today. So bring your legs hip distance apart, both extended long. And then we're going to take the right knee into the chest. So we're going to take as our first posture a variation of tree pose. So release the foot to the ground, the right foot with the knee bent. Take the right foot to the inner left thigh or inner left calf, and let the right knee drop out to the side. If it drops down and your left hip pops off of your mat, press the left hip down and place a prop underneath your right knee or right thigh somewhere, so that ideally the pelvis is level. The back of the body can stay heavy and comfortable. And then gravity can help open up this right inner thigh. The left leg doesn't have to be extremely active. It can rest. So those left toes might point a little to the left instead of straight up toward the ceiling. And then take a mental inventory of what you notice here just by changing your shape. What sensations do you observe in the back of the pelvis as now you have a rotation of the femur and the right hip socket? Notice any sensations on the sole of the right foot. And which parts of the right foot are in contact with the mat beneath you or in contact with your left leg? And are you in any subtle way trying to help this posture? You only have to go 50 or 60% of a stretch. So the sensations aren't going to be really high or very loud to the body. But many times, even when things are easy, we try to help. We use more energy than we need to. So with your arms either by your side or out to a T or even in cactus arms, can you let everything in the body get heavier? That includes the backs of the shoulder blades, the backs of your head, the back, hopefully you only have the back of one head, and then even the tongue in your mouth. As you breathe in, notice that lightness at the top of the body. And with every exhale, sink in a little more. And by sinking in, I just mean let go of the need to help. As you breathe in, can the body be a touch lighter? Or even it might be a lightness in the sensation of your skin. As you exhale, imagine gravity pulling you down toward your mat. Notice the rate of your breath as you're here. And without changing, just become curious about it. Can you make it a touch more even as the breathing comes in? And just as smooth as you breathe back out. Starting with any minor incremental shifts to increase your awareness. Take about 5 more smooth cycles of breath here, as long and comfortable as they can be. When you're done with those 5 rounds of breath, maybe draw the right knee back in toward the chest for a moment. And then extend the right leg back out to Shavasana, just to notice the difference in how a few minutes' time can shift sensations in the right leg and the right hip. Observing any sensations at the back of the pelvis, the sacrum, even around the low back. And then when you're ready, we'll switch sides to hug the left knee into the chest for just a brief moment before placing the left sole of the foot on the ground. Taking the left foot now to the inner right thigh. And again, if your left knee drops over to the floor and the right hip picks up to make that happen, use your right hand, help press the right hip back down to the mat and place the block anywhere under the left thigh or knee or shin in order to allow the hips to be as even as possible. So again, this side might be entirely different. Most people are asymmetrical just based on our habits. And if you're a golfer, you're very likely asymmetrical because you're swinging repetitively in one direction. So take the first couple moments here to settle in and observe the differences really in how you're positioned. So how that right leg is extending, how the left foot is positioned, where your left leg hits the block or a blanket or any kind of props underneath it. Notice both sides of the pelvis melting into your mat evenly. The low back sustaining its natural curve. The upper back coming into contact with the ground. And how you've chosen to place your arms for this side. Can you take a deep breath in as you start to settle in here? And as you exhale, can you let it go? And the breath being the vehicle through which any of the repetitive thoughts in the mind start to unravel. Habitual stories, memorized patterns in the body that are no longer serving you can simply begin to be brought to your awareness and let go. Some of these might not even need to be brought to your conscious mind, but by breathing consciously here, you give those unwanted patterns a chance to dissolve. So turn your attention back to your breathing here. Taking long, slow, rhythmic cycles of breath. Keep the lips lightly soft as you breathe through the nose. The tongue resting at the bottom of your mouth. And even a relaxation of the jaw. Sometimes the hardest part of a yin practice is wanting to do more. And the stillness-based modality really requires you to do less. And as the body does less here, many times the mind starts to ramp up. So just be aware of what's going on in the body, in the mind, and use your breathing just to keep present, letting go of, again, those things that no longer serve you. If you're still holding on to any help in the body making this posture deeper, let go of the reins and let the breath aid the body in doing what it knows how to do best. Find balance and equanimity for you. Take 3 more cycles of breath here. When you're done with that, maybe hug the left knee in toward your chest one more time before you re-extend the left leg long, pausing once again to observe now right and left side of the body. And then from here, we'll take a symmetrical pose. You can bend both knees, place the soles of the feet on the floor. Walk the soles of the feet together and drop the knees out to the side. Again, supta gomukhasana, a reclined butterfly. And we're going to prop up the knees as needed here so that you can rest in. And now observe any length in the inner thighs that occur when both legs are in the same position, mirroring each other. And you might notice this appears different than when you take it in a regular class because you've actually just witnessed one side before the other get a fairly intense opening, or a fairly isolated opening. Maybe intense is not the right word. But as we're here for the next few minutes, let gravity drop the outer thighs toward the ground. And then we'll take some breathing patterns here to help focus the mind. So on your next inhale, fill up deeply. As you exhale, slowly release and breathe back out. As you inhale, breathe in halfway and pause. Breathe in the other half of your breath and pause. And then exhale, let it all go entirely and get heavier with the body. Keep that heaviness as you inhale, fill up the breath halfway. Pause. Fill up the second half of the breath. And pause. And exhale, let it all go. Sink down into your mat more heavily. Keep this ease, breathing in halfway, fill up. Pause. Second half, fill up. Pause. Notice the pelvis and the back of the shoulders dropping down as you breathe back out. Take 3 more rounds of this Viloma pranayama at your own pace. After those 3 rounds, come back to an even, effortless rhythm through the nose. Again, aware of if any part of the body is trying to help you stay in this posture. Can you let go of the need to make anything happen here? Allowing those mental dots to surface so that you can connect them in a meaningful way that's right for you. Take about 3 more cycles of breath in this position. As you finish, slowly draw your knees in toward your chest. Allow your hands to help as needed. Maybe even rock a little side to side. And then roll over to one side and press your way to a seat so that you can help prepare yourself for the next posture. We're going to take tipsy frog to continue this vein of opening up the inner thighs. Such an often neglected area, but a wonderful way to release any tension that has been stuck in the body. So I recommend you grab your blanket and place it into a square-like shape. And then place it about halfway down your mat. And you can have your blocks close by or just off to the side right now. You're not going to need them quite yet. And then come to lay on your abdomen. And so from this prone position, we're actually going to place the tops of the feet on the mat, the elbows underneath the shoulders, and the forearms parallel. So in this case, I'm going to start on your left side, but you can start on any side that feels comfortable to you. And then from here, you're actually going to bend your left knee, flex the left foot, and ideally the left knee will be about the height of the left hip if that feels okay. If not, just move it closer toward the back of your mat. And if Sphinx Pose with the upper body becomes too intense at any point, you can go ahead and drop your torso to the ground and just rest. But ideally, we're going to spend about 3 minutes here, and we're going to notice that if there is a space between your left frontal hip bone and the ground, or your right frontal hip bone, whichever knee is bent, then you want to imagine the front of the pelvis dropping toward the ground this time. And all the while, the backs of the shoulder blades melt down the spine. You can broaden the collarbones slightly. And you can use the forearms and the hands and the elbows to lightly press into your mat to make all of those actions happen. To imagine drawing your chest forward, the heart forward toward your fingertips. And this is one of the more active yin postures that does invite you to be present in finding the balance between effort and surrender. So this may seem a bit challenging just to be in the posture. Can you use the strength of your hands and the forearms and the back line of the body to open up the front into this gentle back bend? At the same time, can you relax into it, letting the inner edge of the bent knee resting onto the blanket, the inner thigh melting down on the bent leg, and the front of your pelvis getting heavier still. If your head does get too hard to hold up, you can always take a block and place it on, or place your head on the block just underneath your head. That would be an option as well. But see if you can breathe. Find your smooth rhythm of breath. Let that be your point of focus. Got about a minute left. Ideally, try to keep as much weight evenly underneath both elbows, underneath both forearms, and underneath both hands. So we create as much symmetry in the body in this asymmetrical posture. Take one more round of breath here. And then as you exhale to come out, take your elbows out to the side, stack the palms one on top of each other, and turn your head to the opposite side of your bent knee. And now notice what it takes for the body to simply breathe into the low back, into the hips. Can you offset any tension that might have accumulated in just taking this posture? Can you get heavier still in the body somewhere? As you're ready, slowly return the left leg next to the right. Push yourself back to a seat for a moment so you can switch the side of your blanket. Taking a moment to set up. Returning back to your forearms, or your belly first and then your forearms. Coming into Sphinx Pose, second side. Same exact setup, only this time the opposite leg will go on your blanket to the outside of your mat. Again, this might be different than the first side, so be okay with that. Lightly flex the foot on the same side as your bent knee. Take a moment to really start to let both legs get heavier. Imagine the elbows drawing back toward your torso without moving. But yet, as the collarbones broaden, the shoulders can melt. You can find a sense of ease. You can take note of what you're working with here on this second side. And you can breathe more deeply to allow any stuck information that's in the body to be released. The body knows how to naturally get rid of toxins. Many times you just have to give ourselves the chance to do so. Give the body a chance to do so. And in this time of quiet and deliberate posturing, you aid in that process. And then you can just get out of the way, focus on your breathing, and stay as calm and cool and collected as you can in your Sphinx Pose, or this tipsy frog variation. Breathe in and out through the nose here. Can you soften the jaw, the throat, the eyes? Can you melt the front of your pelvis down toward the ground? letting the belly drop, but the heart stay lifted. Take about 3 more cycles of breath on this side. As you're ready to come out, take the elbows out to the side and turn your head in the opposite direction of your bent leg. Let the pelvis get heavy and just notice how the structure of your pelvis makes this posture unique for you. Can there be a way to find more ease as you breathe effortlessly here? As you inhale next, slowly start to re-extend both legs. Press yourself back to a seat so you can prepare for, you guessed it, frog pose. We've been working into this opening of the adductors, and so we're going to do the same here. So I suggest whatever side your blanket is on, keep it, and then fold your yoga mat in half. Or if you have a second blanket, you can just take a second blanket and put it on your mat. This is where your blocks might come in very handy, as well as your bolster, because we are going to recline the torso over the bolster, and you could literally stack these up as high as you'd like to get comfortable. If we start to get into this and you have any pain in the knees, or it's just extremely uncomfortable, you can't stay, then come back to a reclined supta gomukhasana once again. So we're going to have the knees in line with the hips with both feet flexed, just like they were independently, only now we'll be in that same position together. So I suggest you start on hands and knees. It's nice to have the blankets a little bit wider. Or if you have a hardwood floor, it's easy to help the blanket slide. So by coming onto your knees, you can actually start to lightly flex the feet and turn the toes out. And then you can start to slide the blanket further away from you and position yourself as gracefully as possible so that the knees and hips are in the same line, the shins are parallel to one another, and the feet are lightly flexed. And then you're simply going to rest your torso down in a way that feels comfortable for you. You can, again, stack blocks as high as you'd like. You can move things around in whatever capacity you need to. I'll go ahead and turn around so you can see it from the other side as well. But ideally, you're just going to make sure that your chest can be comfortable and your hips can start to open. So breathe. As you get into this pose, the breathing will be the biggest and most important factor to find something that's comfortable for you. So we're going to go ahead and breathe here for about 3 to 5 minutes. So if you've been in this pose while I've been chatting, you're here already a minute already. So take your time. Notice that if you have props underneath you, you can allow the breath to come in and the front of the torso will have some constriction. That's kind of nice. You can then notice the low back inflating with the breath. And every exhale, you can let the whole torso get heavier and melt down into your props. Just make sure the spine feels long, the feet are lightly flexed to protect the knees, and you have enough padding under the knees to stay comfortable. They're as comfortable as possible here. For this is the space we're creating from which you can expand. We're creating the space that you can connect the dots and generate new ideas from that sea of information available to you. So notice as you breathe here, allow the inhale to be smooth. As you exhale, maybe you elongate the exhale so it's a little bit longer in length than your inhale. Allow the exhale to be the vehicle through which more space is created. And can you soften the jaw and the throat and the eyes even more so as you focus on elongating your breath back out? Take 3 more cycles of breath here. And on your following inhale, slowly start to press your hands into the mat. Start to swing your feet toward one another. Draw the knees closer toward one another, and you might even sit back into a child's pose momentarily, resting your head on the floor or your props that are right there available to you. Just breathe for a moment into the low back, aware of any changes around the pelvis. And as you're ready, take your next inhale and come up and reset your mat. You're pretty much done with props for now. You might want to keep your bolster somewhat handy, or at least your block handy for our spinal twist that we're going to end with. But just nice to have some options. I often call this Restora Yin because we're doing some restorative yoga as well as some yin yoga. Just a little bit of a combination. So make sure you have access to what you might need in a few moments. Come to lie on your back, soles of the feet on the floor, knees bent. Just pause for a moment. Again, just changing positions creates new sensations in the body, and you're aware of that without other distractions around you. Now from here, cross the right knee over the left so that the inner thighs come to touch, and hug your knees into your chest. So we're taking a supta gomukhasana variation, or reclined swan. So you can hug the knees into the chest and just stay here. That's option 1. Option 2 would be to reach for opposite shin. So your right hand would grab your left shin and the left hand would grab the right shin or ankle, and start to lightly flex the feet and draw the shins toward you. If that feels comfortable for you, you might even reach for the outer edges of the feet and draw the feet lightly flexed again toward your shoulders. So we're getting now a stretch for the outer hips to balance out all the work we've done on the inside of the pelvis, the inner thighs. And we're going to breathe here. This is where more of the yin comes into play because it's a little more challenging to engage the body but yet relax at the same time. Again, you should still be about that 50 to 60% stretch, maybe 70 tops. So it's not going to be too intense to hold. It's just going to be this practice of being active but being calm at the same time. Not having to give 100% always, which if you have perfectionist tendencies like myself, that can be a good skill to practice. Taking your foot off of the gas, letting it be what it is, and being satisfied with it. So we are here for a couple more minutes. Can you settle into the breathing? Finding a neutral pattern, just even in and out. Maybe you liked the breathing pattern of elongating the exhale that we just did moments ago. Or you might try that split part breathing, the Viloma pranayama, that we did earlier in the practice. Pick one that you can stick with to give your mind something to focus on. And just remember that you want to relax the body as much as possible every time you breathe back out. Whether that's your hands holding your legs, the back of the shoulders dropping into your mat, or even the back of the head resting down to the floor. I promise this won't be as long of a hold. So can you settle in? After your next exhale, slowly release your grip. Take the sole of the left foot to the ground. Shift your hips an inch or two to the right, and we're going to take a spinal twist. So now drop your knees over to the left, and this is where you might want your bolster or your block underneath your knees so that as you open up the upper body, your right shoulder can rest on the floor. Right? The tendency is to twist so far that the right shoulder pops up. But can you melt it down while you stay in this twist? Keep your head in a neutral position with your chin facing the ceiling, or you can turn your head to the left, and then as gravity starts to pull the right shoulder down, you might notice an extra bonus stretch along the traps or the neck, the deltoid or the pecs on the right side. As always, turning your head to the right in opposition of the lower body is an option as well. Using this twisting position of the body to further let go of anything you no longer need, making tons of space for you to create. Continue your own breathing pattern so that you don't have to get caught up in exactly what sensations or ideas mean as they come to your conscious awareness. You can simply become aware of them and return back to the present moment. Take about 3 more rounds of breath on this side. And in your own time, slowly come back to center. Extend both legs long along your mat and take Shavasana, this corpse pose, to observe the difference side to side. And without judging the changes, simply notice them. As you come back to knees bent, soles of the feet on the floor, you might even windshield wiper the knees side to side before we go to the second side if you feel a little movement is necessary or your body would benefit from it. And then coming back again to that neutral starting point, cross the left knee over the right, inner thighs touching. pelvis stays neutral as you draw both knees into your chest. So many options still apply. You can hug the knees in and stay. You can reach for opposite shins, lightly flexing the feet and stay. Or you can reach for the outer edges of the feet and stay, depending on your flexibility level in the outer hips. So again, we have a couple minutes on this side. You know where we're going. You know what this entails. So breathe deeply. Find a pattern of breath that works for you. Relax the neck, throat, jaw, head, shoulders as much as possible. And this will be the ongoing work while you're in this pose. Breathe in consciously. Let go deliberately. As you find yourself in a twisted position with the hips and perhaps a bit more of a challenge, are there any patterns of thought that come to mind? Be aware of those, and then breathe them right past your mental screen. Curious, open, but yet detached. Take about 3 more cycles of breath on this side. Turning the right sole of the foot to the floor when you get there. Lifting and shifting the hips an inch or two to the left before you drop your knees over to the right. And finding height for those knees or enough support for those knees where you can literally lift and shift the upper torso so that it's flat along the ground. So that the left shoulder is supported by the floor just as much as the right. And this side will likely be different. Be okay with that. And then decide how your head and neck would most be comfortable. Left, upright, or turning to the right. Maybe choosing the same variation you did on the first side. Breathing here. But this time letting go of any need to control the breath. As you start to ease your way deeper and deeper into the slower brainwave frequency, one where you can rest, restore, find more balance and ease. Where might you let go? Where might you see new space? And what new ways might you create from all this information you've gathered here? Take about 5 more cycles of breath here. And following inhale, slowly come back to center. Uncross the legs and either windshield wiper the knees side to side before you come back to your final relaxation, or just slowly start to make your way there. Notice what it's like to have your whole body back on the floor again. Adjusting the backs of the shoulders, the pelvis, the feet, anything to get comfortable for your final resting pose. And you do have a bunch of props close by, so if you need to put a bolster underneath your knees or a neck roll with the blanket underneath the neck, by all means do so. Let's take 3 deliberate breath cycles here together to close out the movement portion of the practice. So take your inhale, fill up, pause at the top, and exhale, settle in. Breathe in deeply, connecting with that intention you started with at the beginning of practice. Illuminated at the top of the breath. And exhale, let it go. Trusting it's manifesting in the right shape, form, and time. 3rd time's a charm, fill up deeply. Pause. And let go. Sinking into this new body you've created just by your breath and through your postures. Aware of what new insights and ideas and thoughts come to mind as a result of creating this space in the body. Linger here as long as you'd like. If you're ready to make your way back to the waking world, slowly deepen the rhythm of your breath. Gently wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. You can roll around the wrists or your ankles before taking a nice long stretch with the entire body. Even draw the knees into your chest. Again, rocking a little side to side before rolling onto one side that feels the best for you. Careful of any props. And then from that side lying position, go ahead and press your way to a seat. Pausing with your eyes closed as you come upright again. This last final gesture with your hands at the heart. An appreciation for this time you've carved out to be here today. Knowing that the changes you've made last long after you leave your mat. These insights, these dots you've connected here, only pave the way for more insights to come. And that which you've no longer needed and let go of through your posturing on the mat can really create the foundation, this space from which to move forward. So notice what comes up for you in the coming hours and days and weeks ahead as a result of this new understanding you have at the level of the body and mind. So bow your gaze. Thank you for being here. I thank you for sharing your practice with me. Namaste.